Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 6th Annual New York City Electroacoustic Improvisation Summit. I'm Adam Wilson, the director of the festival and the co-founder, along with Kevin Patton. Kevin and I found ourselves working together several years ago at New York City College of Technology in a department with a really amazing live production program, complete with our own theater in Brooklyn. Both of us are musicians working in electroacoustic music, and we saw an opportunity to offer a venue with great technical support to our colleagues working in the same field around the US and throughout the world. Our show, as you know, occupies a niche in the electroacoustic music scene. We feature improvising musicians who incorporate real-time computer systems in their performances. Most of the artists who appear on EIS write their own software, build their own hardware, or they configure existing hardware and software systems for novel modes of interaction. These systems kind of encapsulate a variety of approaches ranging from artificial intelligence techniques for generating music to complement an improviser's choices, to extending the artist's lexicon through hardware interfaces that perform signal processing on acoustic instruments or initiate clouds of algorithmic sound. We come together around a practice. Improvisation and interactive computer systems can be deployed in almost any genre of music imaginable. Regardless of the system employed, the music that takes shape and performance differs radically from group to group, and the music that you'll hear tonight exemplifies that perfectly. Every year, we have a dedicated crew of faculty, staff, and students from the Entertainment Technology Department at City Tech who support the show. And switching from our usual in-person format to an online format, during a pandemic, no less, kind of doubled the amount of work that they normally put in. We're very grateful for their efforts, without which the show would just be impossible. Thanks to you all for listening. If you'd like to follow along with program notes and read the artists' bios, please have a look at our website, eis.nyc. At the end of the show, we'll have a discussion with the artists, and you'll be invited to ask a few questions by typing comments in the YouTube page for the live stream. And now, without further ado, let's begin the show. Okay. Hello, everyone. As with any large production that involves international remote partners streaming from various places, we're having some technical difficulties. Our third performer tonight, Alexa, is having some computer issues, and she's getting back online right now. In a few moments, we're going to proceed with our last group. And then we'll come back to Alexa in a few moments. I just want to let everybody in the audience know that we have performers from all over the world tonight, and even within the groups themselves, members are distributed around the globe. We have folks performing tonight that are located all across the U.S., from New York to California. We have people in Belgium, Germany, and the UK, all coordinating for the performance tonight. So I think we're ready, and we're gonna go on to Can You Hear Me?
Hi, I'm Alexa Dexa, and I welcome you to Bewitch Yourself by rooting into your resources with me. So together we'll call in the resources we need to guide our way forward as we hold space for our infinite possibility and open to manifesting transformation through the process of deep listening. We'll begin by gaining insight with the collective resource-based oracle reading using my sacrosanct oracle composition deck, which doubles as a collection of indeterminate graphic scores, which I will use to perform with. So I'm going to fan out my deck and select a card for us. And as I do that, I welcome you to consider where you might like to find support, which energies you'd like to welcome into yourself. Okay. So the resource that has come up is Sacrosanct Embodied. And this is really asking us to know ourselves as divine, to know that wherever we are and whatever we're doing, however we're doing it, this is where we're meant to be, this is how we're meant to be doing it, and to trust ourselves and to know ourselves. So I'm going to hold some sound space for all of us to bewitch ourselves and manifest transformation while listening to the sounds generated from this collective reading around Sacrosanct Embodied. And I welcome you to join in crafting this sound space from wherever you are, if you feel so called, with any mechanism for generating sound and a connection to experimentation and play.
All right, everyone. I want to thank all of our artists for wonderful performances tonight. I want to thank all of our artists for wonderful performances tonight. Sounds like we've got a little bit of delay here. For wonderful performances tonight. Sounds like. All right.
I did that.
Oh, no worries. No worries at all. And now we're good.
By mistake.
Oh, it's a little bit of performance art at the beginning of the discussion can't hurt. So again, I just want to say thank you to everyone. For some of you, it's very, very late right now. For others, it's a bit earlier. I know it was tricky to coordinate just within your groups, and it's doubly tricky to coordinate all of these people and with all of the technology involved in your setups in the show. So again, thank you so much for being here, and thanks for not just sharing your music, but taking part in this discussion as well. I want to let the audience know in a few moments, we're going to open the floor to questions. So if you have anything that you want to ask anyone here, go ahead and post your comment on YouTube, and we'll get to your questions in a moment. But first, Kevin Patton and I would like to ask a few questions of our own. And I think I mentioned earlier, we had a little break, and I mentioned that we have people here from all over the place, Belgium, Berlin, Belfast, a lot of bees, all over the US as well, UK. So, remote performance, I think, Kevin, you wanted to ask some things about the challenges of remote performance and working in semi-isolation.
Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to say thank you, everyone, for sharing with us tonight. That was really amazing and inspiring, and it was really, really satisfying to listen to abstract music and performed by so many people that are so accomplished, and many of whom I'm lucky enough to call my friends. So, yeah, so I just wanted to ask you all, like, what has it been like over the last year trying to manage performances and remotely being in semi-isolation, and how have your practice responded to that?
John?
Well, our trio, Paul Adaman and my trio, was specifically put together under pandemic circumstances. So we've scarcely played face-to-face together at all. And Paul and I have also done a whole series of experiments.
Tragic experiments.
Particularly, like trying to stress our situation as much as possible. So basically with the idea of not sort of ameliorating a kind of loss of presence or a kind of nostalgia for the gig, even though we have that, of course, but to just see what the unique and unpleasant and difficult and challenging opportunities are with our current situation. So, and that's very much influenced our practice. So as the trio, we're exchanging stuff from our local domestic environments and setting up feedback relationships, using network delays and all of that sort of thing. And actually that's sort of like has been for us our starting point. So it's not like we've kind of adapted to the circumstances. The circumstances have birthed us.
So you mentioned sort of using network delays and stuff like that. how many of you leveraged the difficulties inherent in playing remotely to to sort of alter your musical vocabulary, or how many of you incorporated that consciously? Or anybody? Does anybody want to speak to that? Or was this just a hill to climb to play the music that you normally want to play? Just you're in different places. Yeah, Jonathan.
Yeah, if I may. A couple of things there. One is that in some ways, of course, it's a much cleaner situation, the sort of music that we're playing this evening, because you've got much more control over what people are actually hearing, especially in my unfortunate situation, where I tend to make loud extraneous noises that are difficult to discipline in a live situation. That's an additional issue. And we've learned a lot more about how to play together. We've discovered new sort of parameters of what it is to play together this way, and we've dealt with some of the challenges, and we've probably agreed that there are some irrelevant questions, like it's nice to play Haydn string quartets with someone in Alaska, but actually that's not in the nature of the technology. But I think once we get over all this selfish stuff, a much trickier thing to deal with actually is the multiplicity of perspectives of the listener that you encounter in this situation. If you've got a whole bunch of people together in one room, there's a certain commonality of experience that you're addressing when you play there. And I think that is very different in this situation. And for me, ultimately, once you get over all the other stuff, that becomes a major difference.
So there's not only the issue of working together over the internet or remotely. There's sort of working in isolation. I think that was Kevin. You wanted to ask about that as well. I think something along those lines.
Sure, it's a continuation of the same question. But Lauren, did you want to speak on this topic?
Go ahead and ask the question, and maybe I'll answer.
Okay. No, I just as we were talking, I just wanted to say that telematic improvisation is not necessarily a new thing for our community. In fact, Paulino Oliveros was one of the pioneers of that, and I remember back as the early 2000s doing some projects with that. So in a way, maybe it's not so different. And part of me wants to ask questions about how you maintained just yourself and your health, and how you were able to just be human in all this. So I don't really have like a particular ideological angle I'm trying to get to. I just want to hear feedback from you about your experiences and how all of this mess, I mean, Lord have mercy, is just, how it's affecting you.
Yeah, I'll speak to that. I mean, honestly, let's acknowledge it's been a horrendous year. It's been a year of crisis and isolation, and this is the first time I played with this group of people, and they're all people whose work I adore and admire, and people who, some of whom I've already collaborated with, some of whom I've wanted to collaborate with. This is the first time we've actually got to do it. So for me, it's an opportunity to get myself out of this isolation and collaborate with people who I enjoy, and that's it. I mean, from a technological perspective, it's a lot of work. It's incredibly difficult, and thanks to everyone in the group for working through it. I think this opportunity has been fantastic because now we kind of have something established. So I'm looking forward to doing more and inviting more people to collaborate and keep this going. So thanks, Adam and Kevin, for giving us this opportunity to kind of, at least for me, to get myself organized to kind of do this kind of work, which takes, I mean, if you saw my room with the amount of tech that I have set up right now to manage all this. But yeah, really, just getting to play with with Lynn, Christina, Kiko, and Cecilia has been incredible. So
I'm going to say this is really fun. So Lauren invited us. I would say, yes, I miss you. And then Lauren have done a lot of work, behind the scene to, connected OBS and all of that. It's actually the, the experience because, this is also my first time, like, thanks to Akiko that, bring up the clean feed, this technology. That's what we are using currently for this performance. And so it's kind of intense because I also have Jet Trip on my computer, and sometimes the Jet Trip just not kill himself. And it was like, there was like this Monday, and I was just suddenly, I don't have sound, that was really stressful. But and then, things are kind of a little bit chaotic, but also very fun. So I really enjoyed this whole experience. Very, very fun. Thanks.
So this leads in. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was sorry. Yeah, no, Kevin, you asked about health, and I mean, I used to tour a lot, and I must say, even despite having had COVID in the past year, probably the past year has felt, in a bizarre way, healthier for me than many other years. And I have been speaking to a bunch of touring musicians, and a lot of us, I feel, are like kind of readdressing what it is to be a musician after having spent a year where you couldn't tour but have had to change your practice. And so disregarding what the I mean the horrendous reality of COVID, I think a lot of artists have had time to rethink their practice.
So that's interesting. This has been sort of a relaxation for you. I wonder, we have this sort of practice of working with loads of technology, which we use under normal circumstances, and it can be a burden under normal circumstances. And now we have all these additional layers of technology that we need to work with remotely. So it's this is a question I was thinking about earlier, and it kind of feeds into this. It kind of feeds into this idea of, how many people would actually do this post-pandemic, right? Continue to use this layer of technique. So Adam, you're saying, hey, yeah, this actually, I think I will continue to do this, or maybe there might be a way to move forward in a healthier way, actually using this. For me, I know it adds a layer of technology that adds a little bit more of a headache than I'm normally used to. Kevin and I usually perform on the show too. And this year we thought, well, we have to switch gears and learn how to do all this stuff and be able to advise people on how to make this work. So no, we're not gonna do both things this year. Are any of you just like dying to go back to ordinary performances? Yeah, Juan.
No, I just wanted to mention that I'm maybe one of the representatives in this particular group of the people for whom this kind of performances was part of their work way before it was forced to everyone due to COVID. And we discussed a lot with, we created kind of a task force on the early times during March, April, June last year, and we were giving daily hours of service to all sorts of musicians. And what is fascinating is that over the whole year, I see a lot of these people who first had the impulse to try to translate their practice directly as it was, but on the virtual domain, starting to accept and embrace what this medium offered, and how you have to change things, and how you could reconfigure the way you related to others, to the other musicians, where you also had to reconfigure the notion of an audience. Like, we don't know now, but probably there is someone listening that we're not seeing, and therefore we're just talking among ourselves. So some of us started questioning those things beyond the technology, but those who were new to these technologies also were confronted with trying to adopt. And I talked to a lot of them, and I think that for them, even post-pandemic, I think that this has brought an opportunity to think about what it means to take a plane across an ocean for a 15-minute presentation and then head back, and how ridiculous that is, and how necessary or not that is, especially those who have a strong foot in academia. So it's not about being a gigging musician to make a living, but it's more about combine everything. Like, well, Jonathan and I think our last intercontinental trip was playing live at your festival last year, guys. So we're although of course you miss it and you're looking forward to do that, but it's the social aspect. But there's something else. And that is what Adam was mentioning, that we cannot remain unaffected by what all this situation offers as opportunities to change ourselves and change our relationship with what we do, why we do it, and to whom we can share it.
It's complex. What comes out the other end of this pandemic situation? Yeah, Christina.
I wanted to add the question of attention to the mix. Since the pandemic, at least personally, I've felt myself by design or by circumstance really paring back the kind of quantity of stimuli around me and things that are occupying my attention. And that's been helpful in a way, and good for me to kind of slow down and think about that. But in contradistinction to that, I will just say that this kind of telematic practice seems the opposite. I have like double at least the quantity of things that I need to be visually and aurally monitoring during performance. And I just think that's interesting, whereas the pandemic generally has pulled me toward kind of more vivid but fewer kind of stimuli or attention sources. This kind of work that's been necessitated by the pandemic is the opposite and kind of proliferates the information. So I hope to balance that going forward.
Yeah, Akiko.
Yeah, definitely playing online is a new experience for me, even though I also have taught ensemble classes that also use the same kind of system, and completely remotely created music together and presented online and so on. So this is not completely new, but it's relatively new for me comparing to in-person performances and so on. I definitely miss how we can interact in just feeling the air. You know, you can kind of sense something through your skin and so on, being in the same physical room. That kind of thing I definitely miss. And also the relationship between the performers and also the audience, because we don't have, like one was saying, we don't have direct feedback. We don't know what's going on over there. That's another thing that we can kind of enjoy. And so those aspects I miss, but at the same time, as an introvert person who actually likes, being more stationary and not traveling too much and don't have to worry about carrying gear all the time, because especially going through the customs of the airport is so stressful. And also our group is consisted of people from all over the place in the US. Otherwise, we wouldn't have able to have this kind of gathering and make music for the sake of making music, which was so much fun. Because, if we are traveling while you are doing other work, full-time job, teaching or whatever, it's so much you have to do. Then you create music in snippets of the time you kind of squeeze out. But at the same time, this kind of music making opportunity with people who also admire was really kind of, it's not a break, but it kind of gave me the sense that I'm not completely isolated in this pandemic, even though I am alone in my room. So the connection between the music through the online was really, 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 really comfortable thing, because a lot of things going on, social justice and so on. It's really, really stressful right now. So it was definitely good to have that kind of musical support through the peers who really care about the music and also the community.
It's interesting. I also miss the energy of live performance and the being in front of the audience, but I also hate traveling. I like to perform live, but I don't want to go anywhere to do it. So yeah, there are these opportunities, and we can get together and share with people, share music with people that we wouldn't ordinarily get to share music with, and it's convenient. I think now maybe we ought to, if there are any audience questions, maybe we can open it up and see if there are any. Hold on, I'm getting a cue. I see. Okay. Someone mentioned working with network delays. Can the groups that were spread out geographically talk about how they synchronize their performance? So a question about technology, synchronization. Anybody want to tackle that one?
Well, I guess I mentioned it. So I mean, I think there's actually it's interesting. This connects with the previous discussion as well as to where you draw the boundaries between what's a kind of enabling technology for you and what's your sort of zone of play, and whether you actually extend your zone of play to include what would otherwise be an enabling technology as well. I mean, there's a big choice there. Where's the boundary? Where do you make the cuts in the world? And as I said, some of the experiments I've been involved with have very much extended those boundaries. They've included all of the enabling technologies as part of what's in play. And part of this for me is like also a kind of principle of improvisation as well, which sometimes not everyone I play with, but sometimes I play with an idea of creating an environment that's impossibly complex for me to deal with, and impossibly complex for me and my collaborators to deal with. And part of what's done is this ongoing battle, which we know is going to fail, or not battle, struggle, whatever. But certainly, if there are ways of working to discipline network delays and to dynamically compute network delays by testing people's connection strength and so on, and adjusting for that, so as to try and manufacture a sense of a coherent, a cotemporality. And there's a system that we were using tonight, Sonobus, which does
Sonobus.
Yeah, or Sonobus, Sonobus. Yeah. Anyway, Sonobus. Yeah, that one. And yeah, we've been working with that, and that makes adjustments for the connection strength that individuals have, and can support quite a large number of people. And that we use tonight, but as I say, on other occasions we've just completely rolled with all of the nonsense.
I do think it's about rethinking what synchronization is, and opening that up to kind of a broader interpretation. I mean, we're always dealing with latency, even the latency from across the room. So it's kind of a relative tuning in to what the timing differences are in the space. Sometimes using those actually as meaningful resources for different types of music. And this isn't a new thing either. You know, you might, like some of the kind of music you get across a valley from each other would intentionally be kind of call and response, or you know, because of the time it took to travel from one to another, you wouldn't try to play in time. You'd play a phrase or a note, and the other person would play the next one. So you develop techniques that are sequential rather than on the beat together. But also, I quite like the wonkiness of the latency within network performance. That kind of sense of time that it isn't about mechanical time, but it's about some sort of kind of human and network combined time.
It's interesting that I think you're both talking about this in different ways, but John mentioned creating a system that's so complex, it's difficult to come to grips with, and to me that means it's difficult to make predictions about what's going to happen next when you do an action. And to me, that type of situation is sort of creative fuel when you present yourself with something like that. And it sounds like that's exactly how you guys are approaching it. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. Do we have another question maybe from the audience? Put up. Here's another one. Thank you all for a wonderful concert. Yes, thank you. These questions are for everyone. How has listening within an ensemble and/or how have the choices you make when improvising changed in virtual venues? So ensemble, we mentioned, we talked a lot about latency and dealing with network delay. In what other ways have you had to adjust your ensemble chops? Yeah, Juan.
I think that the most radical choice that you have to make is loop back. So, and that it is connected to latency and decreasing the latency or trying to synchronize everything. So what is being transmitted to the virtual audience is synchronized. In order to be able to do that, the safest way is to connect to an external server and let the server give you back everything synchronized. But that also means that you hear yourself with a much larger latency. And I think that the choice to make when playing together is basically to choose to embrace that and kind of dive in and like Paul and John were mentioning, in a way, accept that as part of the system, or go deaf, if you will. So play your part, monitor yourself in real time, trust that the other is receiving what it needs, and then just create this kind of blind collages that at some point make sense, but the whole picture is only received by the audience. So with Chris, who couldn't stay this time, I mean, he's the one that created Jack Trip. So we work every week since March in a quarantine lab session and ensembles, and we have tried all sorts of things, like having virtual pannings, having everyone listening just to themselves, everyone listening to each other. So we have workshop different ways of relating to an ensemble situation, but of course that is quite critical and that is quite different. So it's playing with monitoring or without monitoring, and there's nothing in between. To make an analogy to a live concert situation, and then I think that the additional aspect of that, and it's something that Jonathan was mentioning earlier, has to do with everything is very close and it's very here. It's directly inside your head. So if let's say if what you're dealing is with extended instruments, with electronics, which is a lot of us work with that, the moment where you lose control and who is producing what is much quicker than in a let's say in a physical interactive situation. So you have to really keep track, or let go and just enjoy the ride, basically, which is also an interesting approach.
I think it's interesting that you took a systematic approach to trying to develop an ensemble technique for remote performance. Has anyone else tried to do anything like that with your, I mean, Lynn, Christina, Lauren, Akiko, Cecilia, you have a large group. How did you attack your performance practice?
Well, for me, I mean, there's a couple of things to that. I think there's sort of two questions embedded in that. Is like one, how to handle an ensemble rehearsal, which I think is a different question than like what the personal experience of performance is in that instance, right? I think for me, the working with a large ensemble online or offline is not, and just isn't that much of a different challenge, right? Like it all boils down to, are you listening and can you be quiet? Like those are the two big things. And, you know, that's a negotiation online and offline. Negotiating temperaments is much harder in this scenario, right? Because like, unlike going to a space to rehearse together, you can't leave your junk behind, right? Like you can't show up to junk and leave your kids, your cats, your work. None of that goes because it's like in your room. And that's a big challenge in this that I think we're not really addressing here. And like from my own personal perspective of rehearsing, playing like this in an ensemble versus playing in person is, for a couple people here have played with me in the past, I am a thieving magpie. I like to copy, imitate, steal, and run with other people's materials. And that is really hard to do online. So I'm not doing that, right? Like I'm sticking with things that I trust will work with whatever happens. So in some ways, I've muted my palette more than I would like to in an effort to not be rude, I guess is the best way I can put that.
Yeah, actually, I simplify my systems. So I was originally wanted to use the system that have visuals too, and they have real-time control by gestures, and also the audio is being processed. And then we have so many brilliant performers, musicians here. And then I was thinking, you know, do I need to set up this complex system, you know, in this kind of already very complex setup? So a lot of, you know, this choice that I made for our ensemble this time is, you know, to be able to, you know, be a support member. And then, you know, we have already have many fun here. And then I think, you know, sometimes in this situation, my philosophy is less is more. Yeah, hopefully, yeah, it doesn't sound, you know, too simple. I would say that.
No, that doesn't sound too simple at all. And it's interesting that the approach that you all took seems to be more sort of, you all developed personal approaches that just meshed well together, as opposed to sort of, you know, ticking through some, you know, taking a systematic approach. Well, let's all try this, let's all try that. And that seems to have also had some really good outcomes. I want to ask one more question. So Alexa, you're the only solo performer tonight. So we've been asking all these questions about coordination and stuff. Tell us a little bit about your approach.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of listening is always still there, but I'm really just listening to myself. And I'm primarily a solo artist as it is, so this is sort of, you know, this is not very different from what I would be doing regardless. This particular piece I did write for it to be virtual. So it's my first specifically intended virtual piece. And I think that it really, for me, has been a really beautiful way to create intimate spaces without having to be in public spaces, especially because I'm chronically ill and the idea of going outside is very distant to me. And this is like the only way that I can participate safely. So I think there's something really beautiful about being able to hold that space and make that space. And so just this idea with my Max Patch that's sort of hanging out in the background, I don't have to worry as much about latency, and I'm listening into the sounds that are happening as they're happening. And a lot of the work that I do is really less interested in synchronicity and more interested in the magic that happens when you aren't having to pay attention to it. Things that you couldn't possibly intend on or plan for if you tried, but that will come and intersect in these moments where it's just come together. Like you've set up the structure that needed to be there, and then you showed up, and then it just did the thing for you almost. So that's sort of my take on all of this.
I also noticed, we didn't get a chance to run through your introduction and tech rehearsals. You just, got down to playing the music, and it's clear that your music has a lot to do with healing, and or at least this piece has a lot to do with healing. And I think it's kind of appropriate that we're in the midst of this pandemic now, and you're able to share this healing music remotely. And I really felt that the music that you performed sort of executed the message that you were looking for.
Thanks. Yeah, I think, specifically with these oracle cards that I've created that double as musical scores, this project is something that I've sort of brought together in the last year, and it's really based around resourcing folks through challenging times and just recognizing the innate resources that we do have, that we are able to cultivate, and trying to create a space where just all you have to do is listen, and in that space where you listen, a new neural pathway can sort of open up, and healing transformation is possible.
That's great. I think maybe one more question, and then we'll call it a night. Do we have any more questions from the audience? Thank you for all the great works. Question: is using mixed reality, VR and AR solution, as an AR VR solution, would that be a great substitute or probable replacement for future live performance? So not only having us remote, but maybe be avatars or interacting in a virtual world. What do we think about that?
I've been using some AR in some of my solo live streams, just like filters and actually doing some visual processing for the first time. I never really forayed into it before because I don't like flat screens, but I've kind of done it, and I worked with a visual artist, and I did some jitter coding myself, and now I have the opposite problem of how I'm going to take this into the real world when I start doing shows again. So it's interesting. It's given an opportunity to explore these new visual elements, how they connect to the improvisation, and also opened up possibilities for collaboration. So I think there's loads of interesting possibilities. There's loads of concerts I'm seeing that are happening in like virtual spaces and game spaces as well. So I'm curious to see, I'm just watching and seeing what happens, see where it goes.
So a question that comes to mind. So, we're performing a part, and now we're thinking about sort of ensconcing ourselves in virtual worlds. There's this, the first thing that comes to mind is there's this risk of moving away from our bodies, moving away from corporeality, and music has this sort of basis in corporeality. Is there a way to use technology, this kind of technology, to bring it back to the body, and or to emphasize corporeality in any way? And if so, what is that? Yeah, Jonathan.
Yeah, I was in relation to the other question also about working together in ensembles. I was thinking that actually this experience of the last year has been a way of refining listening, which is a very corporeal thing, and of really learning to reassociate things inside your head from things outside your head, and to become aware of the number of, I mean, it's easy to talk about visual cues and things like that. And of course, we can see each other perfectly well remotely, but your awareness of human presence is much richer than that, which playing music together often, I don't want to say exploits, often develops in interesting ways. So to be deprived of that actually shines a light on it in some ways. So I think perhaps this experience has taught us something about different aspects of our corporeality, which we may have taken for granted. And I was thinking in that light, Christina, I think very usefully pointed to the depriving of stimulus over the last year. And I was thinking, I was reminded of people like Rosa, Negri, Berardi talking about the slow cancellation of the future, of being super saturated with stimulus, such that you're almost immobilized by it. And that this, in a way, in a cruel way, has been a gift, a chance to be relieved of that to an extent. And what all those people point to is emergence from that situation, not by leaving technology behind, but by establishing new modes of commonality. And I just wondered whether anybody else had found this experience of the last year of remote performing, for example, as a way of, as a new means of establishing new kinds of commonality with people. For me, this has been interesting.
I think there's definitely an opportunity here, lots of opportunities here, in despite all the, despite all the potential negatives as well. Does anybody want to say anything else? I think we're getting to a good point where we can wrap up. I just want to thank everyone again for performing tonight. Thank you, Kevin. And I especially want to give thanks to our crew, in particular, Jason Guillaume, who is our technical director, Cindy Vasquez, our stage manager, who actually did this while having COVID, Saad Faruqi, who is our streaming consultant. They spent lots and lots of hours, and there are many others who worked on the show, and the credits will be posted after this. Get to see their names, and they work on the show tirelessly every year, and we thank them profoundly. And hopefully next year we'll be back live, and even if not, we'll do this again. Take care, everybody. Good night.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, everyone.